All right, good afternoon. Planning and Land Use Management Committee, Tuesday, November 13th. Been joined by the Honorable Councilmember Mitch Englander. We do have all of 2 items today in the agenda. Is our Director of Planning here today? I don't see him. So, take us to item number 1. Roberto?
Yes, council members. Item 1 it's actually a proposed target in the Hollywood area, and it contains 3 appeals. One by Mr. Doug Haynes from the La Mirada Avenue Neighborhood Association and the Citizens Coalition. Second appeal is by R.J. Comer, representing the applicant. And the third one from Lane by Ms. Gwynn.
Okay. I understand Councilor Weezer won't be joining us today, so I guess we can proceed with the presentation from the staff.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Blake Lamb, and I'm with the Planning Department. And what is before you today are 3 appeals of the decision by the Central Area Planning Commission to approve a proposed Target store with additional smaller retail uses located within the Hollywood Community Plan. The Planning Department recommends that all 3 appeals be denied. A quick description of the project: it's an approximately 194,749 square foot multi-tenant commercial building, approximately 74 feet and 4 inches tall. It includes an approximately 163,862 square foot Target store and 30,887 square feet of smaller retail and restaurant uses. It includes 458 parking spaces. The Target store is located within East Hollywood in one of the city's specific plans called the Vermont Western Transit-Oriented District Specific Plan, Station Neighborhood Area Plan, or as we call it for short, the SNAP. The project requested exceptions from the regulations of the SNAP specific plan, requested a conditional use for alcohol, and a site plan review entitlement. The Central Area Planning Commission heard the case on August 14th, and on September 4th, it issued its approval of all of the entitlement requests, as well as certification of the EIR and a statement of overriding consideration for a couple of issues, including aesthetics, transportation, traffic, and parking, construction noise, and air quality during construction. These 3 appeals were filed regarding the decision, and I'm going to discuss them a little bit out of order. The first one I want to discuss is the appeal that was filed by the Los Angeles Alliance for a New Economy, or LANE, which contends that the Area Planning Commission failed to make the superstore findings as required in the Municipal Code Section 12.24.u.wd. This code section requires special findings to be made if a major development project is over 100,000 square feet that sells primarily personal and household goods, and it devotes more than 10% of its floor area to the sale of non-taxable merchandise, which would be things like food in a grocery store. However, Section 1224U14C indicates that this project is exempt from needing to request this conditional use and have the findings made for it because it sought other discretionary entitlements, including a conditional use and a specific plan exception. And all findings were made pursuant to CEQA, and all significant aspects of the project's design were considered and addressed and found to be mitigated with the adoption of the Statement of Overriding Consideration. I also understand that Lane has submitted a letter to this committee with a proposed condition of approval that they would like to be added to the decision. A second appeal was filed by Doug Haynes. It's a joint appeal filed by Doug Haynes on behalf of La Mirada and Robert Blue on behalf of Citizens Coalition Los Angeles. This appeal contends several issues. One, that inadequate findings were made, that there are deficiencies in the EIR and staff report, and that these documents were inadequate and precluded informed decision-making by the Central Area Planning Commission. that the applicant presented no records, evidence, or testimony showing that the development cannot be viable without the requested exceptions, and that the applicant has provided no legal justification for omitting the Hollywood Central Park, also known as the CAP Park, from the EIR as one of the associated projects. Finally, a third appeal was filed by the applicant, which is Target. This appeal is specific to one condition. It seeks to modify condition number 119 that limits store signage to below 35 feet in height. Target wishes to have signage extending above 35 feet in height. One notable fact about the project, it includes several display window boxes, window box type elements on the facade of the building. The window boxes are higher than 35 feet, and these include graphic images including bullseyes, depictions of merchandise for sale, and other identifying markers for the Target store. Because the graphic elements are over 6 feet from the face of the window, they technically don't qualify as signage. They don't meet the definition of a window sign, therefore they're not considered signs. However, for all intents and purposes, they will appear as signs to passersby on Sunset Boulevard and Western Avenue. The condition to limit signs to under 35 feet in height does not affect those window box displays. The reason for the condition that was adopted by the Area Planning Commission is directly related to the exception request for Target to go over the height limit of 35 feet in height. Projects that are standalone commercial in the SNAP are limited to 35 feet in height. However, those projects that have commercial and residential uses may go up to 75 feet in height, provided that the commercial must be on the ground floor. If Target is not granted the exception for height, if the appeals are not denied today, Target would be limited to a 35-foot height limit, because mixed-use projects in the SNAP that do rise up to 75 feet in height are limited to the commercial on the ground floor with residential above. They don't include commercial signage on the residential portion of the building. The commercial signage is generally limited to the ground floor commercial uses. Therefore, the exception for the additional height for Target's building floor area was granted by the APC, but their signage was conditioned to be maintained at a lower scale, which is consistent with other commercial-only and mixed-use projects in the SNAP. Again, the Planning Department recommends that all of the appeals be denied and that the decision of the Area Planning Commission be upheld for the approval of the Target store, all of their requested entitlements, certification of the EIR, and adoption of their statement of overriding consideration.
The signs that would exceed 35 feet, are those the signs you would find in the interior and the exterior of the building or the facade? Is there a way of understanding where they would go?
Yeah, so the signs would be located, the proposed elevations for the Target store show bullseye signage as well as the pharmacy signs. One pharmacy sign on the exterior facade of the Target that are located over 35 feet in height, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions for the staff, Councilmember? Push your.
Yes, the November 1st, 2012
Thanks.
date.
Yes. Can we address some of these issues? There's a lot of issues, most having to do with due process, just to get that on the record on what we have done or what they're alleging we haven't done.
And this is the, just to be clear, this is the letter from Armbruster, Goldsmith, and Delvac dated November 1st, 2012.
This is the Silverstein Law Firm dated November 13th, 2012.
I'm sorry, I don't have a copy of that letter.
Okay.
We're going to answer that?
So we don't have a copy of it
Can
either?
we get them a copy?
Okay. You can have my copy. I've read it. We'll come back to it. Thanks.
So the question has been posed, Ms. Lam, the question that's been posed to you, you'll need some time to look at the letter to make sure we get a response to the council member.
Could you repeat that question, please?
The question has been posed by Councilmember Englander on the November 13th letter. Can you make sure you take a glance at it to make sure we have an answer for him?
Yes, we're all, there are 3 of us currently speed reading the letter, so
Right.
we can provide.
That's a graduate school requirement, right?
Okay.
Okay, just kidding. All right.
But I can answer any other questions if you
No,
have
well,
any.
let's just take care of that. And,
Okay, great.
So, any other presentations? Is building and safety here? Building and safety? No, okay. Okay, while they are reviewing that material, let's start with the appellants, and we'll start with the Doug Haynes appeal. Give us a reason why you're appealing this particular issue. Representatives for Doug Haynes or Doug Haynes himself, however you want to proceed.
Good day, Daniel Wright of Silverstein Law Firm on behalf of
These
La
are appellants, we'll
Mirada.
give them a little bit more time.
And I was going to ask about time because we do have another council addressing some of the land use issues on the exception. So I was just wondering if you could give an idea about how much time you wanted to allocate to the appellant.
I hate to ask this question, how much time you need. We could be here for 3 hours if we let you.
I can assure you, Mr. Chairman, I don't think I've ever had 3 hours in front of this committee.
How about, let's start with 3 minutes and we'll go from there.
How about
For you?
How about 5 minutes? Would that be okay?
For you, and then you have another speaker as well?
Well, no, not just for me, but I think to get our main points across.
Okay, well, why don't you go ahead and we'll start with
Okay, see how it goes.
3 minutes with you, then we'll go over we have to. Then we'll go to the next speaker representing the appellant.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. First of all, let the record show that La Mirada has submitted numerous comments and evidence, including the letter from Mr. Haynes that is in the record dated November 9th with all of its exhibits, and I assume that letter is in front of you. And also the letter from the Overton Law Firm, which will be addressed in a moment. I indeed will talk a little bit about the due process concerns that the council member Englander raised. The essential point of our letter is that there's 2 things that we see that are fundamentally a problem with regard to the way the city is conducting land use appeals. And now we have, I guess, maybe our finger on the pulse of this issue. And that is that, number 1, Government Code Section 65804 requires that cities and counties adopt procedural rules when they act as zoning or planning agencies. In essence, your municipal code allows aggrieved persons to appeal items to the city council. And as far as we are aware of, the city council has never adopted any procedural rules for the conduct of its hearings consistent with this statute. And therefore, conducting this hearing without complying with that statute is a statutory violation, and as well, because the purpose of the statute is to protect fundamental procedural due process rights of appellants in land use hearings, it's a violation of constitutional rights as well. Additionally, it's not as if the city is aware of this. This issue was raised and a cause of action in the case involving the Hollywood Gower project, which was filed over a year ago. Your city attorney has been aware of this issue. I presume brought this to your attention or not, I don't know. But for whatever reason, the city has had over a year to address this issue, and they have not done so. And finally, in Section 4 of our letter, we also point out that there is a problem with regard to the way the city conducts land use hearings, in that when someone has a right to be heard by city council, they have a right to be heard by all of city council unless your rules delegate all decision-making authority to Plum. But it's our understanding of the city council rules that Plum is making when you vote, that you make a recommendation to city council. And then historically, we've seen the vote taken by consent. That is not a hearing. And in in Hollywood Gower, the court agreed with our position that that a vote by consent at council does not constitute a hearing. So because of these fundamental due process problems, we would recommend that this item be
Mr. Wright, but
continued
that's,
until such rules are provided by the city.
when you make that assertion, are you saying that even though a public hearing was held in committee, that it should be held again in council? Is that what you're asserting?
Based upon the way that the city council rules are written, yes, because and that it must be a full hearing in front of all of council in order to comport with due process. However, your rules currently as written don't really provide for that, as far as I can tell. So those are the issues that we're raising in the context of this. A lot of these issues came to light as we worked on the Hollywood Gower case, which was we've attached a copy of the court's ruling to the letter, and you can see that the court agreed with us that there were some rather fundamental due process concerns about the way the city conducts its hearings. I know that we're out of time, but I would like to yield unless you have any further questions.
No, just for the record, I know that I make it a point as chair of this committee to make sure that we hear the appellant and allow the appellant to say what they need to say, given their perspective on the case. And I do have the public comments here, public hearings here, and our recommendations to the council is based on those discussions and dialogue and decision-making as we go through the material. So I just want to make sure I would say that for the record as well.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I totally respect that. This, what we're identifying here is really a process that's been in place in the city for many, many years. But we believe on careful review of the differences between the Brown Act and what that requires and what minimum due process requires, that the city's processes remain out of compliance, and that's our position.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
that's fine. Next speaker. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Stephen Jones, 500 South Grand Avenue, Los Angeles. I'm here representing the appellants Doug Haynes and Robert Blue. I'm here to talk about the exceptions, and I have submitted a letter to the committee regarding those exceptions, and I don't intend to bore you by going over what I've put in writing. I am just going to relay a story about a case called Stolman versus the City of Los Angeles involving the reversing of a variance by the city, which the Court of Appeal did. I was the attorney for Stolman in that case. In the oral argument before the Court of Appeal, when the deputy city attorney stood up to give his argument, he was lambasted by the justices as to how the city could have possibly approved the variance. They were so critical of him. He did something I've never seen before. He, halfway through his argument, picked up his notepad and sat down. I then stood up to give rebuttal, and one of the justices was giving me the old hand signal, which means, shut up and sit down, you fool, can't you see you're winning? But I didn't talk about the lawsuit itself. What I talked about was the fact that however clear it was to the Court of Appeal that that variance should never have been granted, the vote inside of City Hall from the zoning administrator to the City Council was 24-0 against me. I requested that the Court of Appeal publish the decision to instruct the city as to how it should rule on variances. And the Court of Appeal must have agreed with me because they published the decision, and actually I ended up getting my attorney's fees from the city. This case, should you approve it, and should it get to the Court of Appeal, I believe would be dead on arrival in the Court of Appeal. In fact, I believe the justices would be unhappy campers just to see it. So we request that you deny the exceptions in this case. and save everybody time and money. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on behalf of the appellant? Doug Haynes, come on.
Good afternoon. My name is Doug Haynes. I'm with the La Mirada Neighborhood Association. And one thing I want to note first is that the Department of Recreation and Parks has a separate issue related to this, which is the child care facility requirement that Target is supposed to fulfill. There's an option for an in lieu payment instead of providing the 3,850 square feet of child care facility that would be on site or within almost a mile on site. At the request of the applicant, because the staff report for that said they would reject it, that's been pushed to November 21st. So that matter really needs to be settled before the City Council decides this, which would be November 20th. And Blake is familiar with that. She was at the hearing also. You had a question initially, what is the basis of the appeal? This is a matter we came before you on 2 years ago. We came before the Area Planning Commission 3 years ago. Originally, this application came in 5 years ago, and no one's ever listened to us. No one's ever listened to the community. No one's ever listened to the Hollywood Design Review Committee in its rejection of this project. No one's listened to the people within this community that this project would gut snap our specific plan, which is crafted so carefully and enacted in 2001. It would eviscerate it, and it's been sugar-coated by the applicant and their representatives, and that's what they're paid to do. But that would be the end result. To create a canyon on Sunset Boulevard, perhaps it's the goal of our councilman, but Target came in, and it's acknowledged in the proposed supplemental findings that you received, they came in with a code-compliant or almost code-compliant project. We never saw that project. No one in the community ever saw that project. They claim that key stakeholders did, but we were never presented with that. It was a backroom deal, and I'm sorry to use that phrase, but it was a deal that excluded the community. We've asked Target at every hearing, and I've attended almost every hearing. I've asked them, the Neighborhoods Council has asked them, the Design Review Committee has asked them to come back with a code-compliant project, and the response we always get is, this is the project we're going to the City Council on. And that is not fair to this community. It endangers disrespect for the City Council, and it's very unfortunate because we don't have a lot in Hollywood, but what we do have are our view sheds. And if it sets a precedent, and I want to point out, the agenda doesn't really state what's at stake here. There are 8 exceptions to the specific plan, which I believe is almost a record. For us, we want to preserve what's fantastic about Hollywood. We stuck it out. My neighbor stuck it out after the riots and the earthquake, and this is not what we anticipated for our future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. I believe that exhausts one set of appeals. We do have another appellant on the case, and that would be representing Target, Dale Goldsmith.
Good afternoon, Chair Reyes, Councilmember Englander, Dale Goldsmith, Armbruster Goldsmith, the Delvac, representing the applicant, Target. I have here with me other members of the Target team, including Bill Huntress, the architect. He's available for a presentation or any questions you have, but given this is appeal, I'd like to focus my comments primarily on the appeal. And I'd like to also invite my colleague and partner, R.J. Comer, to address some of the issues raised by Mr. Wright regarding due process. This project was before you a couple years ago. It's a great project that's gotten even better. The design has been improved with stakeholder input. The project will revitalize the area. It'll replace an aging and obsolete strip mall with a sea of asphalt parking. It'll include an 11,000 square foot plaza, decorative paving, seating, specialty lighting. There'll be 36-inch box trees around the street in lieu of the 24-inch, so they'll be more mature. There'll be a kiosk for transit. There'll be sustainable design features, 800 construction jobs, 250 permanent jobs, and substantial sales tax revenues. Regarding Target's appeal, Target is asking for relief from the condition that would limit the height of signage to below 35 feet. Target is seeking to get 3 additional logo signs, identification signs, on 3 of the corners to provide better identifications for motorists so that they'll make the right or correct turns into the facility as they're driving by. If the signage was lower at 35 feet due to the trees, nobody would be able to see them, nor would it be a particularly good pedestrian environment. The amount of the signage that's being requested is far less than would otherwise be allowed under the municipal code. It's compliant with the SNAP signage regulations, and it was part of the project that this council approved a couple years ago. Regarding the Lane appeal, Lane's sole concern was that the project might be a superstore. It is not. It doesn't meet the percentage of sales floor area. We've worked out language with Lane to address their concerns. They've submitted a letter, and Target agrees to that proposed condition, and we'd like to see that in the conditions of approval. Regarding the Haynes Blue appeal, all the points in the appeal have been addressed in our letters and our proposed supplemental findings. They've been posted and publicly available on the clerk's website for over a week, some even longer, and we would respectfully request that you deny the appeal and adopt the supplemental findings. One further thought: it was interesting to hear Mr. Wright cry crocodile tears over due process when Mr. Haynes and his unregistered lobbyists showed up today with a voluminous amount of materials that when we asked to review before the hearing, he wouldn't even let us do that. So when we're talking about due process and fairness, I guess it's a two-way street. In any event, we would like the opportunity to respond to these, obviously not today. We respectfully request that you keep the record open till the end of the week or maybe till Monday for the sole purpose of allowing Target and the city to respond to the materials that were dumped upon this committee today. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to have briefly speak my partner, R.J. Comer.
Let's see, come on up. R.J. Comer.
Good afternoon, Honorable Council members, Reyes and Englander. I'm going to briefly address some of the due process issues that were raised. The claim that there's a pattern and practice of due process violations by this body has not been ruled by any court to be true. There was an alleged pattern and practice of violation that the Superior Court in the Hanover case previously mentioned made no ruling on. That ruling has not been made. The court also did not find that a specific plum hearing in that case, although the court did find that hearing was unfair, it did not find that hearing was unfair based on the government code. It found that hearing was unfair based on the fact that the court felt that significant new information was added to the record very late in the game, in fact on the day of the hearing. Those facts are not presented here. As my partner just said, all of the supplemental information has been in this record for over a week, except for 2 short letters that were filed by a consultant last night, but they are not voluminous. They amount to a total of 3 pages. And more importantly, the case that did find that one plum hearing was unfair is currently have noticed for appeal. So that ruling, whatever it's worth, is stayed pending an appeal on that very issue. It is also true that this body does have rules. The charter invests this body with the ability, like any other city council committee, to do the city council's business in committee. There are rules regarding notices. There are rules regarding hearings. And there are rules that, having been in this city hall working for over 16 years, I've seen enforced by Councilmember Reyes and your predecessors, affording everybody an opportunity to speak and to address the issues as they come before you. Of course, you have a city attorney, and I'm not it, so I'm sharing with you my experience and my response to that. My last bit is to respond to the Stolman case previously mentioned. Stolman was an interesting case. It was a gas station that was seeking to add an auto detailing portion, and really the sole justification for that variance was, quote, dire financial need, unquote. And there was very little, in fact, there was nothing in the record to support the financial need for those variances. That case is not at issue here. Here, the only financial issue that you may see in the record is in response to the question of why can't this project do underground parking? And there's many reasons why it can't do underground parking, but one reason happens to be its cost, and there is evidence in the record as to the substantial increase in cost for subterranean parking. But there are a number of other reasons, wholly unrelated to financial need, and all of which are supported by evidence for each one of these specific plan exception findings, and therefore the Stolman case has really no applicability to this case. I thank you for your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I don't have any questions at this moment. Any questions? No. Thank you, sir. Okay, now, does that cover all the representatives for the second appeal?
No, well, you haven't heard the Lane appeal, Council.
Okay, that's what I was going to go to next, but I want to make sure we covered all the second appeal. Right, the Lane appeal, anybody here? I understand from the presentation that we just heard that the Lane appeal was addressed through documents submitted that addressed their issues. Is anyone from Lane here? I don't have a card here, so if anyone from Lane, just to confirm that. Okay, then we'll just come on up. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Janine Liao. I'm with Schwartzstein, Superior, Dorman, and Summers, here representing Lane, and I can confirm that our issues were resolved through Mr. Goldsmith's statement earlier about the condition and the language that we agreed to, which is also stated in the letter that was sent to your office.
So we're all on the same page?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's finish going through the cards, and then we'll get to the discussion. So we have Jeremy Jacobs. No, we'll go back to 2 minutes. That was for the appellants. Good day, sir.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Jeremy Jacobs. I'm a Director of Operations at Sunset Bronson and Sunset Gower Studios in Hollywood. We're a very large stakeholder in this project in terms of our proximity, the number of people we employ, and we're very strong supporters of the project. We feel like it's a great infusion of jobs to the area, sales tax revenue, obviously, getting rid of the blight on that corner that's been an issue for a long time. It also provides very needed goods and services that are not as accessible in as close proximity to the area for the people that work for us and also for our tenants. The closest target right now is actually in the city of West Hollywood. This is in the city of Los Angeles. It's right down the corner from both of the studios where we work. And we feel like it's a very good project for the community, and we're looking forward to seeing it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have William Huntress. William, would you like to speak? Architect available. All right, all the way from Minnesota. All right. I noticed the zip code is pretty different. Okay. David Bell. David Bell, like to speak?
Good afternoon. My name is David Bell. I'm here today as a member of the Hollywood Studio District Neighborhood Council. I'm also the president of the East Hollywood Neighborhood Council. The East Hollywood Neighborhood Council was not consulted about the project, even though it's not technically in our boundaries. You could basically throw a rock from East Hollywood and hit the target project. So there's been a lot of talk about sort of a lot of stakeholder support, and I think there's a conflict here between people that want this project and see this as a good project that they want for the community, and there's a conflict here between that and the plan. The Hollywood Studio District has come out strongly opposed to the current design of the project. They're opposed to the height of the project, and they believe that the underground parking is something that would bring the height down. In a lot of the documentation, it's been said that that wouldn't bring the height down, but that's simply because what they're basically trying to do is cram this giant store into a space that's too small in order to be in compliance with the community plan. And I think what Mr. Haynes said about breaking the back of the SNAP is a specific plan designed by the community after a great deal of discussion, compromise, and now what we've got a project that will create precedents. The idea that there's evidence to support all of these exceptions to the SNAP plan is not true. Basically, the exceptions to the SNAP plan are based upon the size of the project. The expense of going underground. I think the Stolman case is a really good example, because what we've got here is Target basically saying, we can't build this project that we want to build and put the parking underground and bring the size of it down to within scale, because it'll cut into our profits and it'll cost too much to build. But that's not true. Ralph's has underground parking, Walgreens, the Assistants League has underground parking. It's basically common practice in the neighborhood.
Thank you very much. Philip Starr. and followed by Nicole Shahanian. Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm the executive director at the Hollywood Worksource Center. That's one of the city's 18 one-stop career centers. We're the one in the Hollywood area at Melrose and Vermont on the southern edge of the LA City College campus. We have over 100 individuals a day that come to our center. They're unemployed. They're looking for work. And many of them live in the Hollywood area and want jobs in the Hollywood area. Many of them are unemployed because of the slowdown for the last few years in the construction sector. Many have multi-language abilities and would be ideal candidates for retail in the area. We need this project. There is great demand in the workforce to work on this project, both in construction and in the retail. We just recently did a job fair at LA City College. Target was there and recruited 50 people to work in the Glendale store. There's a certain point where we need to get this work here in LA. We need to have our local residents work in LA, and we strongly support this project.
Thank you, ma'am. Nicole, sir.
Good afternoon. Nicole Shahanian with the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of the Hollywood Chamber, we're here to urge your strong support of the Target at Sunset and Western. The project will provide Hollywood with much-needed neighborhood retail space while simultaneously reactivating a blighted block that has become an eyesore in the community. The project maximizes development potential of an infill site within walking distance of the Red Line and includes dining, retail, restaurant, pedestrian improvements, and other amenities for future employees and visitors. We believe the size and scope of the project is appropriate for the neighborhood. Located within a transit-oriented district, the Target project will help to alleviate crosstown traffic, allowing residents to shop in their own neighborhood rather than transversing the city. The Chamber is particularly pleased with the over 250 permanent and full-time jobs and the hundreds of construction jobs that will be created by this project. As Hollywood continues to grow, it's imperative that we continue to provide services and amenities for the residents who actually live and work in our community. The Chamber believes the proposed Target store is an ideal retail addition to the neighborhood, and we urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Marty Shelton, then Ziggy Cruz. Marty? After Ziggy Cruz, we'll have Bill Zaid, I believe. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you? Marty Shelton. I represent the ownership at 6363 Hollywood Boulevard. It's a retail property. And as the property owner in Hollywood, we support the project. It'll bring needed retail as a balance to what's there now with older retail. It allows new retail to come in and balance what Target's bringing to Hollywood. As it relates to the SNAP ordinance, that ordinance was put into place around 2001, probably a decade ago. We've seen a lot of transition take place in Hollywood as it relates to the residential that's come in, office, creative office space, and it's a needed product to have in Hollywood to create the balance with all other retail that's there now, which is older retail, addresses different uses. Target is definitely a business that for Hollywood and for Los Angeles brings jobs, as has been stated, as well as sales tax revenue to Hollywood and Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ziggy Cruz? Hi.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Ziggy Cruz. I'm one of the former founders of the Hollywood City District Neighborhood Council. I attended several of the Target presentations that I was on the board. I'm no longer a board member, but I remember when they came, did their presentations and such. From the beginning, this project has not changed. It is still the same. It is still not adhering to what the community really wants and would like to see happening there. They come back with a letter that says that they presented a one-story project in the beginning. I've never seen it, nor has anybody else in my community. I submitted 2 letters on behalf of Mr. Bob Blue. He asked me to drop them off, as well as Jackie Ruiz. They point these things out in their letters as well. Why am I not surprised that Target is coming back with the same project? They want it. The community doesn't. I can guarantee you, you will approve the appeal, not the appeal, you will go against the appeal and will say, go ahead, Target, do it. I hope you will finally adhere to the wishes of the community and the appellants. There's a reason why we keep coming back to you, asking for your support. We are not saying don't build a Target, we're just saying stay within your means, stay within the law, do what the community would like to see, not what you think that should be there. To make a long story very short, please don't let the project move forward as is. Send them back one more time. There's no harm in it. Hey, they waited 2 years to come back to you. What's another 6 or 7 months? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker, please give us your name.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Bill Zide. I'm a member of the Hollywood Studio District Neighborhood Council Board, co-chair of the Outreach Committee, and a member of the Plum Committee for that studio district. I'm speaking on my own behalf, but I think I express the feelings of many within the community in our neighborhood council district. We all want Target in our district. For 3 years, Target has lost opportunity and profits by refusing to accommodate the concerns of the community and the neighborhood council. Target is not saving money or increasing their bottom line by doing so, nor does it help our community and district. Pushing ahead by again ignoring these reasonable requests will end up with lawsuits that will end up with Target losing more money. So clearly, the 15 to 20% that Target claims it will save by not addressing the parking and other concerns have already been lost due to this intransigence. Target's West Hollywood location on La Brea is, I believe, one of their top 3 performing stores in the country. Target has never lost money on a store. I suspect that this will be no exception. So it's time to stop ignoring the will of the community and the neighborhood councils and keep losing opportunity and money because of that, and to instead move forward to accommodate these reasonable requests and concerns before another 3 years goes by. It's this simple. There is a way to move forward. They will make money regardless. We only hope that you are as sensitive to the community as we have to be in our positions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know Mr. Porras is here representing the councilmember's office, and just used the word sensitivity, and I think we can address that right now. But I want to ask the staff one more question before you came, Mr. Porras, up to the speaker. That is, a question was posed by Councilman Englander earlier, and I'm hoping that speed reading class in graduate school helped. She's saying yes. Okay. Were you able to look at that letter? And
Yes. Hello again, Blake Lamb with the Planning Department. We did review this letter. It seems a majority of these issues aren't specifically related to the case that's before you, the Target case, but these are sort of more comprehensive issues that are stemming from a lawsuit, the Hollywood and Gower lawsuit that I know our city attorney is involved with. So I'm actually going to defer to the city attorney's advice on these issues as they are more pertinent to the existing lawsuit.
please.
Terry Kaufman, Messiah City Attorney's Office. I think Mr. Comer gave you a good summary of the other litigation. It's not final. The cause of action that is referred to as pattern and practice hasn't even been decided. So Mr. Comer already addressed those issues, and I agree with what he stated. As to procedures, there are procedures. You do have them. Not only are they in the code and the Brown Act, but they're also on your agenda with regard to submittal of documents and the timing of that. So you have those as well. I think that's the main gist of course, under the Brown Act and under the council's rules, the committee can hear a matter for the full council, and if a council member wants to call it special, you can have a hearing at the full council instead of just this committee. Otherwise, it goes forward, and this is the hearing, and that comports with the Brown Act and due process.
Right, I do know that the council president does offer any one of my colleagues on the council to put forth for a vote to open up a discussion on any specific matter should the body agree to hear it again.
That's correct.
So-
I don't see the issues the same here as in the other case, as far as the last-minute submittal of the document. Of course, I just got this letter from, this November 13th letter from the Silverstein firm, but in going through it, again, I see it the same way Mr. Comer sees it.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Porras. So I'd like to get a sense of direction from the council office when it comes to the two appeals. The lane appeal has been addressed with the documentation has been submitted today. So that issue has been already satisfied to the extent that they've agreed with the terminology and submittal of this information. So that leaves with two appeals. If we can speak to those, we'd appreciate it very much.
Sure. Marcel Porras, Planning Deputy for Councilmember Eric Garcetti. In regards to the appeal by Target for, in regards to the signage, we're not opposed to Target's appeal on the project. For signage, we have, after the initial hearing where planning denied the signage, we convened both Target and planning to discuss about alternatives in regarding to signage. I think one of the things that came out from that is the context of the design of the signage on exceeding the 35-foot height limit. And one of the things that we would like to recommend and suggest is that the applicant Target work closely with the Urban Design Studio to look at alternatives for signage that are that incorporate a better design. Again, design is interpretive, and so I'm not one to comment on the design, but that's why we would refer them to Simon Pastucha from the Urban Design Studio to look at that.
Is that in the form of an amendment?
Yes, that'll be we can amend that as well.
Do you have that in writing?
I do not have that in writing.
Okay, we can put something together for the record.
Sure.
Okay, so, go ahead and finish, I'm sorry.
And then we would also ask to deny the appeal made by the La Mirada Association, and I guess the other one is Bob Blue, the joint appellants, to deny that. This project has been before this body before and before the council, and the council, Councilmember Garcetti had supported the project. Since then, it has come back with an EIR as well as additional discussions around design for the project. We continue to be supportive of the project. We're looking forward to Target coming to this part of Hollywood for revitalizing the corridor and to creating jobs.
Okay. Any questions from the council? Yes.
Can you address also the issue of parking that was brought up by several speakers as well, and it's in a lot of the documents, and the idea of underground and versus surface?
So in terms of the economics or why, sure. So in terms of parking on the specific Target project, it's something that we looked at with Target in terms of going underground. You know, I think for Target, it was a financial issue for them. The cost of going underground versus above ground is a great amount. I believe the average is about $40,000 per space to underground. We felt that this was an economic burden to expect on them. One of the things in addition to on this project that we believed ended up working in terms of on the height, looking at the 75-foot height limit, is that doing that also allows the addition of additional destinations for additional retail on the ground floor to support. In addition, we're also worked with Target to incorporate sufficient bike parking, being that this area is it won't only just be a neighborhood Target. It'll be a combination of, I think, of a regional Target where people will drive, as well as a local Target where people will expect to use transit and to ride. As we've seen in the Target downtown that's open, the city Target, you do get a mix of both regional and local visitors, from people buying kind of small items as well as larger items as well.
Okay. Okay. Actually, no. Cyrus, right? Well, thank you. Okay, you could, Madam Attorney?
Are you closing the public hearing?
I'd like to, but he's
You're not required to, you can take that testimony if you want, but you're not required to do that. I mean, they had a full opportunity to respond.
Okay, because I typically don't have rebuttals, otherwise we stay here all day.
If you want to give them a minute, you can do that.
Well, let's do a minute, Mr. Wright.
Daniel Wright on behalf of the Silverstein Law Firm, and thank you very much for the opportunity to provide a very short rebuttal. One point I would make, really what's happened here makes my point about the inherent unfairness of not having procedures. The statute cited to you requires that there be adopted procedures. Your own planning commission and area planning commissions have adopted hearing procedures, but the city council does not, and that is why...
If I could, can you hold his time? I don't want to interrupt and get into a back and forth, but
Sure.
You wanted to do a rebuttal. You're speaking on the same points you did. If you wanted to counter what was already asked or spoken to, that's, I think, what you were suggesting. I would suggest that that's what we're looking for, the information. Otherwise, this is not in the form of rebuttal. If you wanted to do that, I would take this opportunity and even ask the chair to start your time over again if it's new information or if you really wanted to do a true rebuttal rather than just reiterate all the statements you've already made and that we also have on the record.
Well, I'm here to rebut some of the arguments that were made with regard to the due process issue, and that's what I was trying to do. But I will do that as well as a factual matter. But the reason that this illustrates my point is that this letter submitted today that we've never seen, I'm assuming that your proposed supplemental findings adopt these documents that we've not seen, which is identical to what happened in Hollywood Gower. So it's, again, the unfairness of submitting new evidence at hearings without appellants having an opportunity to review and prepare to meet that evidence at a hearing. That's what's unfair. Also, with regard to the lawsuit, the matter about the pattern and practice issue was actually severed and stayed by the trial court, and so we are asking that the stay be lifted and we proceed forward on that issue. But it is still a very live issue in terms of a concern about the pattern and practice of the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Just in very general, though, if I were to allow for rebuttals and all the arguments, every time we have these cases, we'd be here till 10 p.m. So we try our best to be as open and accessible in the discussions, but we have to keep moving, given the number of items we have on certain agendas today. It's a good day because it's the only real item that needs this kind of deliberation, so we've got ourselves some flexibility. So seeing no other questions, and I've looked at all the material was presented to us. Some of it came in today, and I'm glad the staff was able to review it. And I saw the eyes moving really fast. It made me think they were looking at every sentence. So what's critical here is that there is a series of actions we need to take. And I'd like to start with the following instructions. So given the range of appeals, I'd like to grant in part and deny in part. The appeal filed by Doug Haynes on behalf of the La Mirada Avenue Neighborhood Association of Hollywood, Robert Blue of the Citizens Coalition Los Angeles, and the Lane issue was addressed already with the actions taken by that body. And R.J. Comer on behalf of the Target Corporation relative to the determination of the Central Los Angeles APC in approving a multi-tenant commercial structure approximately 84 feet and 4 inches high that includes 163,862 square foot retail store and a 30,887 square feet feet of other smaller retail and food uses for property located at 5500, 5510, 5516, 5520, 5526, 5544 West Sunset Boulevard, and 1417, 1431, 1433, 1435, 1437, 1439, 1441 North Western Avenue, 1414 St. Andrews Place, 5505, 5525 West de Longpre Avenue.
So as to the specific appeals, Councilman?
I was going to get there, but I like what you're doing there, Roberto. We'll move to approve the target appeal in that manner and deny the appeal by Doug Haynes. And I believe the appeal, again, has already been addressed through the document submitted. And I would like to include all of the findings that have so far been put forth on this file. And I believe there's probably other language that we need to include in this direction, Madam Attorney, or Roberto.
Terry Kaufman Macias, I had a request for an amendment on condition 144, which is the indemnification condition, to add the words relating to after the reference to agents, officers, and employees.
Okay. And Councilor Englander just reminded me that we need to incorporate the amendments as defined by the council office as well.
Right, and I think that Mr. Porras wanted to refer the issue to the Urban Design Studio as to condition number 119.
Okay, so that would be the action in making that referral. And it's in writing, so that's good. Okay, I have a funny feeling I left something out. Did we cover everything?
And you will incorporate the findings that are delineated in the target appeal. I would
Right.
imagine. Okay.
Okay, and that covers that dynamic. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry to interrupt, Blake Lamb with Planning. Just to clarify, just to confirm so that Planning understands. So you would be recommending the addition of the lane condition,
Right.
which is, again, Planning finds redundant, but fine to include. It's basically a reiteration of the LAMC. And then there was also a discussion of the findings that were submitted on November 1st, 2012.
Yes.
And Planning has a few proposed changes to those, if you would like to hear them.
I just want to make sure that it's clear in the record that we did review all the supplemental findings.
We, Planning staff thoroughly reviewed these findings. We had a week and a half in which to review them. And in general, we find that they adequately represent the facts of the case. However, Planning would like to see the deletion on page 2 of the bottom paragraph, which begins with the applicant initially planned a standalone target for the property. So we would like that paragraph deleted. We would like all references to the phrase key stakeholder to be amended to indicate some stakeholders. And then we also would like the deletion of, on page 4, the sentence that reads, "A standalone Target store would not be pedestrian oriented." We would like that deleted. We would recommend that deleted. Thank you.
Okay, you could, okay. And again, I also read all the supplemental findings, so we'll make sure that's clear on the record. Okay. As Councilmember Englander. Okay, see no other discussion, no other questions, anything else? We covered everything?
Not for this item, but there's item 2.
This covers this item though, right?
Yes.
Right. So that would be the action of this committee, the second. And that concludes this item. It's 2 ayes. Item 2, we took care of.
Oh, we did? Okay.
Yep. So that being said, anybody here for public comment? General public comment? Saying none, this meeting is adjourned.